Hello, I'm Floyd Maxwell, justthinkit.com. This video is called Consequences of a Spring and Loop Theory, Modeling. The purpose of models is not to fit the data, but to sharpen the questions. Samuel Carlin. The purpose of models is to fit the data and to sharpen the questions. Spring and Loop Theory. Coffee doesn't ask silly questions. Coffee understands. Modeling is an 8-letter word. Note that this talk is not about a model, as in the Spring and Loop Theory model. When you talk of a model, like the standard model, you imply completeness and accuracy, and close your mind. The skeptic does not mean him who doubts, but him who investigates or researches, as opposed to him who asserts and thinks that he has found. The one is the man who studies the problem, and the other is the man who gives us a formula, correct or incorrect, as the solution of it. Miguel de Unamuno. Temp theories, the black sheep of science. Nothing is further from complete accuracy than the standard model. It has at least hundreds of unsolved problems, and more closely resembles a shot-up highway sign than a stone tablet of chiseled wisdom. The fact it is considered a standard is even more alarming. In more than 40 years, physicists have not been able to provide a clear physical model. Fritjof-Capra in 1975. Call the meeting to order. The first order of business is to reject the standard model, something you won't be able to do at first, or perhaps ever. Man's general way of thinking of the totality, i.e. his general worldview, is crucial for overall order of the human mind itself. If he thinks of the totality as made of independent fragments, then that is how his mind will tend to operate. But if he can include everything coherently and harmoniously in an overall whole that is undivided, unbroken, and without border, for every border is a division or break, then his mind will tend to move in a similar way, and from this will flow an orderly action within the whole. David Bohm. Hand me that scalpel. Forgiveness is a scalpel that removes emotional scars. Maxwell Maltz. When one works at modeling, seats at the table are pulled out. All are given a chance to sit down and talk shop, to work openly, and to dissect sacred cows. The answers are always inside the problem, not outside. Marshall McLuhan. This section rated PG. Dissection is a messy business. But what matters is the purpose behind the practice. The quest for cause. Cosmology's concordance model uses 6 numbers, which are called free parameters, because they cannot be explained within the model, but rather are fitted to the measurements. The standard model of particle physics needs 17 of them. Why 17? The above questions about the 6 numbers in cosmology are dramatically amplified when it comes to particle physics. Alexander Unziker, Bankrupting Physics. With 4 parameters, I can fit an elephant, and with 5, I can make him wiggle his trunk. John von Neumann. Physics needs an NTSB. Not that the NTSB is honest or anything, but physics needs examiners. People, let's not get carried away and call them scientists, who put common sense first. Interviewer. Are you able to stab silver swords into vampiric bloodsuckers? Applicant. Yes? Interviewer. Hired! When paradigms change, the world itself changes with them. Led by a new paradigm, scientists adopt new instruments and look in new places. Even more important, during revolutions, scientists see new and different things when looking with familiar instruments in places they have looked before. Thomas Kuhn. Deer in the headlights. When Planck hit upon the solution to the black body temperature problem, this should have revolutionized physics. Instead, physics managed to conclude that we can't know anything. What a staggering waste of such a profound discovery. Temp theories are like the colon of a 90-year-old steak eater, layer upon layer of toxic waste. From a few basic rules, you can generate a cosmos. Howard Bloom. So why haven't temp theorists changed? Solving problems isn't so much about simplifying them as it is about properly and realistically reducing them to only what's relevant, And one of the best ways to reduce a problem to only what's relevant is to throw away most of your assumptions about it. Christian Cantrell. Physics is always and forever about assumptions. Yet, as COASALT assumptions revealed, the greatest weakness in temp theories is failure to put their assumptions front and center. Imagine if that was deliberate. People see the wrongness in an idea much quicker than the rightness. Charles Franklin Kettering. If people see the wrongness quicker, why do obviously wrong theories, like temp theories, persist for decades? CONSPIRACY. Spring and loop theory. The besetting danger is not so much of embracing falsehood for truth as of mistaking a part of the truth for the whole. John Stuart Mill. Fact. The Standard Model gets broken theories to jive with experimental findings by replacing the broken bits, like endless series of infinities, with the measured answers. Cheater, thy name is the Standard Model. Great scientific discoveries have been made by men seeking to verify quite erroneous theories about the nature of things. Aldous Huxley. Spring and loop theory was conceived because of the intractable errors in temp theories. Something to hide? It is the same pattern found in the most insidious conspiracies today. Fluoridation exists because of the implied but not verified assumption that it is not only safe but actually good for you. Vaccinations are being forced down our throats because, supposedly, they are vitally necessary, an assumption that requires mercury to be good for us. By the way, over 6,000 words on that Wikipedia vaccination page, yet just a single mention of the word mercury in an external link. Ironic, considering where that mercury ends up. In truth, vaccinations are necessary to the foie gras-loving 1%. As they eugenicize us down to that magic 500 million level. Back to modeling assumptions and cycles. I faced people from all walks of business who fully ignored design, though they were completely influenced by it. I also met fine artists who drowned in their own work and the dense creative universe in their minds. Then I met designers and instantly fell in love. Let me tell you why. Designers are familiar with critiques. They not only tolerate them, but actively look out for them. They honestly believe in iterations and learn to edit down their work. They embrace simplicity and create beauty based on requirements other than their own. Design education teaches you to run away from bad assumptions and to have the stomach to scrap your work often. Laura Bush, Lean Branding. Temp theories are megaparsecs away from being iterative. Instead, they've produced the crisis of reproducibility. Reproducibility is non-existent because any successful retest would need to be called plagiarism to properly credit its fictitious predecessor. The machines that are first invented to perform any particular movement are always the most complex, and succeeding artists generally discover that with fewer wheels, fewer principles of motion than had originally been employed, the same effects may be more easily produced. Adam Smith. Simplicity is about subtracting the obvious and adding the meaningful. John Medea. What's the solution? Simple molecules combine to make powerful chemicals. Simple cells combine to make powerful life forms. Simple electronics combine to make powerful computers. Logically, all things are created by a combination of simpler, less capable components. Scott Adams. But has simplicity become a dirty word? It is a bad sign when cartoonists are more salient than temp theorists. So let's double down on the sim word and head back to the future. Nature has but one plan of operation, invariably the same in the smallest things as well as in the largest. And so often do we see the smallest masses selected for use in nature that even enormous ones are built up solely by fitting these all together. Marcello Malpighi. The ether is a seriously patient dude. How would you handle being ignored for 115 years? In the right and trying to outlive a supercentenarian of wrong. Wilhelm scream it is then. Remember always that everything you know and everything everyone knows is only a model. Get your model out there where it can be viewed. Invite others to challenge your assumptions and add their own. Donella Meadows, Thinking in Systems, a primer. A study in contrasts. Spring and loop theory has laid out its assumptions, all 4 of them. Creating a model with them is trivial. Just tap your inner child. Build, create, play. Almost every major systematic error which has deluded men for thousands of years relied on practical experience. Horoscopes, incantations, oracles, magic, witchcraft, the cures of witch doctors, and of medical practitioners before the advent of modern medicine, were all firmly established through the centuries in the eyes of the public by their supposed practical successes. Michael Polanyi. The difference. Temp theory's protective umbrella, the standard model, is model-free. Instead, things are observed. A rule, nay, a law, that needn't be self-consistent is presented, and it's back on the next money train. Stamp collectors are more sophisticated. In no subject is there a rule, compliance with which will lead to new knowledge or better understanding. Skillful observations, ingenious ideas, cunning tricks, daring suggestions, laborious calculations, all may be required to advance a subject. Occasionally, the conventional approach in a subject has to be studiously followed. On other occasions, it has to be ruthlessly disregarded. Which of these methods, or in what order they should be employed, is generally unpredictable. Analogies drawn from the history of science are frequently claimed to be a guide. But as with forecasting the next game of roulette, the existence of the best analogy to the present is no guide whatever to the future. The most valuable lesson to be learnt from the history of scientific progress is how misleading and strangling such analogies have been, and how success has come to those who ignored them. Thomas Gold. Models, on the other hand, get tested. Do they have strength? i.e., do they hold up under scrutiny? Are they simple? i.e., can anyone understand them? Are they economical? i.e., do they cost less than $5 billion a year? Modeling is the opposite of trolling, spring and loop theory. Hiding the truth. The 1% have half of all wealth, so they don't need more money. What is imperative, though, is to control the message. Television shows about nothing are perfect for this, providing both entertainment and pacification. Temp theorists writing works of fiction are also good, keeping everyone irrationally faithful to the gods of science. The key objective is truth avoidance, for not only is there no money in truth, but should it ever leak out, the profit well would be poisoned forever. Kill nightmare. This is not a new world. It is simply an extension of what began in the old one. It has patterned itself after every dictator who has ever planted the rippling imprint of a boot on the pages of history since the beginning of time. It has refinements, technological advancements, and a more sophisticated approach to the destruction of human freedom, but like every one of the superstates that preceded it, it has one iron rule. Logic is an enemy and truth is a menace. Rod Serling. Luckily, truth always leaks out. However, turning a glimmer of truth into a surge of light is not easy, especially when temp theorists label it a thought crime. Truth, it's the new hate speech. Events and developments, such as the Copernican revolution, occurred only because some thinkers either decided not to be bound by certain obvious methodological rules, or because they unwittingly broke them. Paul Feyerabend. An army of some. Each of us can make a difference if we elect to follow ourselves more than our social media safety net and boat anchor. The choice is yours. Carry the torch of a new movement, or crazy glue your lips together. Because the thing is, all those decades of brainwashing have atrophied our imaginations. If we don't see it on a science series, spewing from an approved pressure washer, we doubt it. So, as simple and useful as spring and loop theory is, trying to visualize an entire universe from nothing but 2 types of energy will take considerable time and deliberate effort. But hear this, there is no feeling like knowing something that most don't, though they may have pursued it for years. It is a high like no other, and as free as it is natural. A natural high is an activity, art, or sport that you love to do and makes you feel good inside. Back on Earth. Every conflict in a theory is a weakness in a model. Science has not solved difficulties, only shifted the points of difficulty. Charles Henry Parkhurst. Dark matter equals a broken model of gravity. Dark energy means the inflationary model is nonsense. The coronal heating problem forces a new neutrino model. And diffuse interstellar bands come from the ether, not phantom particles, mutilating another malapropos model. Using the forces we know now, you can't make the universe we know now. George Smoot. Only in physics is nothing done about it. Search Google for how many Freedom Tower models were made, and you'll soon be sifting through millions of results. Yet a non-Planck scale model persists 100 years after Planck solved the black-body problem with the Planck scale. Humans are allergic to change. They love to say we've always done it this way. I try to fight that. That's why I have a clock on my wall that runs counterclockwise. Grace Hopper. Monday through Friday, Neil deGrasse Tyson pushes conventional, i.e. nonsensical physics. But catch him in a more unguarded moment, like on the Joe Rogan Experience, and the truth comes out. Then it's back on the dogma treadmill. If you think a minute goes by really fast, you've never been on a treadmill. Physics began as a descriptive macrophysics containing an enormous number of empirical laws with no apparent connections. In the beginning, scientists may be very proud to have discovered hundreds of laws, but as the laws proliferate, they become unhappy with this state of affairs and begin to search for underlying principles. Rudolf Carnap. I wonder when that'll start to happen to temp theorists. Spring and loop theory, built on the right model, awaits their arrival, or the end of time, whichever comes first. Footnote: Basil Mahon's The Man Who Changed Everything, The Life of James Clerk Maxwell, is on the short list of books Spring and Loop Theory considers required reading for budding physicists. Chapter 7 is called Spinning Cells and covers Maxwell's work on the electrical and magnetic sciences. The highlight of this chapter are the illustrations of Maxwell's model of the swirling body of incompressible fluid. On page 96, he makes an imaginary mechanical model and uses it to describe the four main electromagnetic effects. Page 97, he supposed all space were filled by tiny, close-packed, spherical cells of very low but finite density, spring and loop theory's box full of marbles. Each cell would try to expand, but its neighbors would press back, resisting the expansion. The marbles have nowhere to go. He then asks, but if the cells occupied all space, why were they not apparent? This was before the Planck scale had been conceived of. And how could they exist in the same space as ordinary matter? Not a problem with spring and loop theory's energy-based ether. Maxwell then got it wrong when he imagined that tinier roller bearings were needed to lubricate the movement from cell to cell. Still, with this simple model, he was able to explain two of the four main properties of electricity and magnetism, page 99. Tweaks, pages 102 and 103, explain the third property, and that summer, Maxwell came up with a way to explain the fourth. By imagining the cells as springy, pages 104 and 105 contain numerous mentions of the word spring. Page 106, he wrote up the mathematics and everything fitted together. James Clerk Maxwell, famous for his Maxwell equations, first came up with a model based on assumptions. The mathematics was written up afterward. His model promptly predicted currents everywhere, even in insulators or empty space, and he realized that these cells would create waves. He called them electromagnetic waves. Waves from an ether. Page 107, the speed of waves equals the square root of elasticity divided by density. The ether not only explains what light is, but dictates its magnitude. Page 109, we can scarcely avoid the inference that light consists in the undulations of the same medium, i.e. the ether, which is the cause of electrical and magnetic phenomena. Yet, on page 110, we learn he was not entirely content with the model, wanting to free it from all speculative assumptions about the actual mechanism by which electromagnetism works. Ultimately, he took a purely mathematical approach that led to the Maxwell relations. And thus, the greatest speculation in the history of physics was lost. Quel nightmare!